on. All right, what's up, everybody? Matt's in town in Michigan, so we are going to do a live read from one of our chapters from Behind the Shroud. This is going to be a scene where both of our characters are in it. Matt will be narrating because it's his character's chapter. I will be just acting as Jorunn, who is my character. Now, for some lead up to this chapter, Matt, what's happened?
In this scene, the detective is beginning to suspect that the guy who is disgraced, being humiliated in the middle of this town square, like held in the pillory, you know, the thing where you put your arms and your head through, is innocent. And they haven't had a conversation yet, so they need to have a conversation.
You're the detective, Pendelve the parser. I'm the idiot in the pillory. Jorunn the jester.
In the story, right?
The story too. All right, so we're going right from the beginning?
Yep.
All right.
Well, from the beginning would include a lot of lead up, so I think we can cut out the beginning and jump in right before they...
Holy shit, this would include a lot of beginning. Yeah. Okay, What is this chapter called?
Cross-examination.
So here's a clip from Cross-examination.
The chance of his guilt was slim, but not zero, which brought the parser to a crucial junction in his investigation. It was beyond time he and the jester had a conversation.
Are you sowing a new garden, Saw?
The hunched-over fugitive mumbled as Pendelve approached.
Oh, never mind. Sorry. Old habit. Who is it who walks in neglect of his shoes? Splash, 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 splash. This one is on a mission, with no time to dodge puddles.
Hello, Jorunn.
Parser?
Jorunn declared. Guilty as charged.
That must be your favorite expression.
Pendelve smiled. It's up there. I also enjoy acquittal when the mood strikes.
In cases of innocence, I suppose?
Jorunn inquired.
Don't worry, bub. I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Pendelve asked, Is that so? The unyielding Pillory prevented the painted jester from nodding, so he grunted instead. Would you like to profess your guilt? Pendelve asked him, feeling an upwelling of dread rise in his stomach. He was not expecting a confession after all but convincing himself of the man's innocence just moments before.
Guilt?
Jorunn questioned. You are right where you're supposed to be.
Ah, parser. Many years ago, I took my yoke upon myself. It felt much like this pillory here. I discovered a frightening thing. I could do anything, be anything. I might have become the beacon of order, and then right now it would be your neck pinched between these boards. Point is, everything marched in one direction until one day I received a valuable piece of advice. I took it, then things began caneering in another. I found myself a long way down that path now, where old friends are enemies, and where old-fangled ideas still cling to life. You look at this pillory and you see a jester in disgrace. But what is truly persecuted here is change. What is order if not persistent, stubborn superstition? Superstition?
Superposition.
Superposition. What is order if not a persistent, stubborn superposition? And in such an ordered world, what role doth the jester play?
Pendelve observed the painted man from his bare feet to his wild hair. Agitation? Jorunn laughed heartily.
Very good, parser. Very good.
Was knocking down the East Quarter all in the name of shaking things up?
That was not intentional.
I didn't think so, Pendelve admitted. The role of a jester, what is it? To be disorderly, he guessed. It made sense that a society bent on order would need something to churn the waters from time to time, to prevent stagnation.
To remind us that we're all actors in an illusion. It's the finest theater on a fantastic set, put on by performers who, on occasion, forget they are pretending. These plays come in one of two choices, comedy and tragedy. In moments like this, when the setting is in mourning, turmoil afoot, a hero captured, a heavy-handed justice en route, it might look tragic. But I promise you, though, that in this airlessness about the world, will not be filled with sobs in the end. It's always laughter.
Will you die to raise their spirits?
Ha! And miss the satisfaction of my plan coming perfectly together?
Pendelve did not bother hiding his smile, since Jorunn could not see it. I thought you might be planning something.
Your character is an astute one, parser. You don't have as many lines as me, but you make them count. To the world, my character appears to be a fool who doesn't know enough to come out of the rain.
He turned over his hands in order to catch the steady drops in his palms. A soup of pulp and seeds began to accumulate until he slurped the mixture down like a refreshment. Oh, you got a long one.
Holy shit. To hear them tell it, the jester is uncouth. Uncouth?
Uncouth.
Come on, dude. Uncouth? To hear them tell it, the jester is uncouth, stubborn, vulgar, stupid. He has lost his way, a vagrant, nebulous force who isn't interested in survival. Yet the world looks up at a cloud and asks, where is it going? What is its purpose? What's its use? They cannot fathom the nature of the aimless, pointless, useless, which is the nature of nature. This is the joy of life, parser, to be engaged in the pregnant now, dismissive of the past, unconcerned with the future, as a participant in nature, with nature. If a jester has an aim, it is to be like nature, but that is to say his aim is to be aimless. The pleasure of mankind is in conquering, subduing. It is to take the meaninglessness and give it meaning, bit by bit, until nothing exists for no sake. Soon, uncorrected, everything will function to satisfy a man's scheming. A cloud will only be allowed to exist should it be delivering rain. A fruitless, flowerless, not-filled tree that cannot be used for food, perfume, honey, or lumber must be cut down, for its very existence is in violation of purposefulness. A jester is a correction used to balance the overstress. The more pointless a jester appears to a person, the more important.
Jorunn made sense to Pendelve. The world, especially under the thumb of a strict beacon, became rigid and lifeless under the guise of safety. In such a place, no greater crime existed than being misunderstood. The serious cannot recognize foolishness as their medicine because they cannot recognize their sickness. Thus, to exist without an easily identifiable purpose makes one into the gnarled tree that must be felled, if only to make room for something more normal, more practical. I'm reminded of an islander expression. Sometimes mad, sometimes nude, now a scholar, now a fool. Thus they appear, the free men.
That's good. I've never been to Broken Chain. Alas, would that I could go where I am not needed. Alas, alas, I am, at present, not appearing as much of a free man, am I?
Not exactly, Pendelve agreed. And as a man with a plan, nor do you appear all that aimless. Jorunn sighed heavily.
That's my problem, I guess. That's what separates me from a tree. Oh, fuck. That's what separates me from a true fool. I love them.
The people?
Yes, astute one.
You are right where you're supposed to be, Pendelve remembered aloud. How does being locked up in a pillory benefit the people? Why allow yourself to be captured? What good comes from being lambasted for an accident and for deaths that you did not commit? This cannot all be in the name of levity.
What do you think?
The parser could not be certain. I will answer that question after you answer one of mine. Jorunn grunted his approval. What lives in the gray realm? The jester lifted his sizable cranium to look at Pendelve. He had a twinkle of admiration in his eye, and something else, disbelief, or maybe relief.
I call them shroud hounds.
What are they?
Parasites.
Jorunn answered.
Leeches. They prey on our emotions.
Pendelve suspected as much. Where are they?
You have not seen one because they hide from the rain.
They hide from the rain. That was the missing piece, the subtle cog that brought the two halves of Pendelve's theory together. The parser suddenly understood why Jorunn had given himself up, why he appeared almost pleased to hear of his sentence, why he went humbly to the pillory, why he made sure that Pendelve got the hagstone and encouraged him to look through it, and why he went to special lengths to ensure his hanging waited until the storm cleared. "You're using yourself as bait," the parser said, "so that everyone can see the threat for themselves. That is why you wish for us to wait until the sun is shining to hang you. If it was still raining, the shroud hounds would not show themselves. Beacon Sorrento would have no reason to disbelieve her current certainties." It was a wild plan, displaying delusions of grandeur. The parser had a lot more questions. "How do you know they'll show up?"
I don't know, but I have a theory. Naturally, the hounds have to sustain themselves. Very little exists within the shroud in the way of sustenance, but not nothing. Since you have looked through the hagstone, you must have seen the vibrant impressions humans make within the gloom. My theory is that they have a preference. Pain, sorrow, anger, fear, anguish, to name a few. When everyone gathers to watch me die, I don't think the hounds will be able to resist.
"Your plan is risky," Pendelve pointed out.
Risky or bold?
He asked in a manner that made Pendelve imagine him crossing his arms and looking down his nose with aplomb. "Risky. You will summon your beast to return when the sun comes out, so Beacon Sorrento can begin the proceedings. But then she will take your callings and lock them up, out of connective range. Your mind will fray. Your hanging will be carried out unless, and this is a big unless, before you are asphyxiated, the hounds, who are invisible, mind you, show up so you may capitalize on the opportunity to redirect guilt from yourself to them. But it isn't just the beacon who will need to be convinced, the entire mob, which, as you accurately predict, will be filled with pain, sorrow, anger, fear, and anguish to such a degree that they will not be of sound mind. And your plan relies on reasoning with them? My prediction is that you will die before your beasts break out of their cells. If the hounds do show up, they will have plenty of fodder to select between, and you will be cursed well beyond death. There will be those amongst Lucidus who name you an accomplice to the hounds, accurately deducing that you lured the threat. More will die. You will not clear your name, but tarnish it for generations to come."
Well, no. Maybe. All that is possible. Darn it, parser. When you say it with such confidence, I find my own bleeding away. It's already raining on my head. Why must you rain on my plan, too? Wait. Okay, no. I am finding my certainty again. You don't know what my callings can do. They cannot be locked away for long. Here is what will actually happen. After my beasts are taken away, I will make a grand fuss of having my mind frayed. In actuality, I will be in no great discomfort. Before Saw can even get the noose around my neck, Adder, and Venus will arrive. In the pandemonium, we will sneak away. We will lure the pursuers to the beaches around the water temples, a place with hagstones for all. Then, with their own two eyes, you didn't write that in. Then, with their own two eyes, they can see the truth of the shroud hounds. All it will take is splashing one of them, watching the hound turn into pungent sludge, and my name will be clear.
Pendelve huffed. "Ha! I have 2 questions. I have already deduced that Adder has auric control and projection. I have felt the effects of those amulets Venus passes around. I'm guessing it has external creation and auric transmission. How am I doing so far?"
You're perfect. Go on.
Jorunn praised. "That brings me to my next question. What can do?" Jorunn said.
Can jump.
Can jump," Pendelve sneered. "You were born with were you not? Are you telling me that your first beast has external talent alone?"
You would be more impressed if you'd seen jump.
Jorunn argued. Pendelve grunted. He let it go for the time being. "Second question. All it takes to kill the shroud hounds is a bit of splashing?"
Yes, parser. I told you. They hide from the rain. They are completely helpless against water.
Jorunn said with annoyance. Torrents of rain streamed down his face, accumulating in white beads at the end of his hair, his beard, his nose, and his chin. In frustration, he shook his head, scattering milky droplets in every direction. Pendelve held his hagstone up to his eye. I look at the river and I see nothing but the glow of the occasional fish. There's no water on their side. Does that mean water needs to cross the shroud to kill them? Jorunn nodded.
You understand.
Is there any other way to send water across but through a hagstone?
Not that I know of.
Why then would they be afraid of the rain? It cannot reach them. The jester shrugged. It would have been impossible for Pendelve to tell had his bulky shoulders not clunked against the wood of the pillory.
One can never be too careful.
The parser did not love that response, but he left it alone for the moment. That explained the dehydration. If when a hound attached to a person, it transferred its own hydrophobia. After a handful of days, a person would collapse into a sleep they would never wake up from. It was a sad way to go. Death by organ failure, killed by a hydrophobic parasite. Jorunn's response, presuming the hounds avoided the rain out of caution, nagged at him. When Adder killed the one I witnessed, they plunged into the river. Water would have poured through Adder's stones and doused the hound, Pendelve said.
He killed the other two with the same tactic.
By tricking them into the water.
Something like that. Tricking is a fine word to describe it, I guess.
Okay, the parser said, sighing. Despite my inability to see water in the shroud, the hounds must be able to sense it. They must. It sounds as though they avoid it like the plague, Pendelve said, thinking of the trader who died of dehydration 10 steps away from a drinkable river. He raised the small portal to his eye once more. He scanned the city to be sure. Just as before, a scattering of colorful orbs coincided with the movements of man and beast. He allowed himself a moment's distraction, observing aura. He had always longed to be able to see it. The fact that there was nothing he could do to muster it up or win the capacity to see aura had been his life's most persistent nuisance. But now, with the help of a simple stone, he could do it. An involuntary grin spread across his face.
Hey, parser,
Jorunn asked, his voice thick with distress.
Do you see any signs of the storm breaking?
Not tonight, my friend. You're in for a long one. The jester wiped his forehead. His finger came away with a streak of white, chalky paint.
Do you believe me?
He asked. Without taking the hagstone away from his eye, Pendelve answered, It's like you said, Jorunn. Seeing is believing.
And seen. That was fun.